Hello, everyone. Well, I got some shitty news for us. It looks like this war in Ukraine is going to go on for years. Recently, as of January 25th, 2022, the RAND Corporation, which is let's just call it a de facto branch of the US government, did a research report. And its distribution is to the WHCS, I'm reading this off my screen, by the way, ANSA, Department of State, CIA, NSA, and the DNC. That's weird. It says executive summary. I want to read this to you, and then I'll basically give you the link at the end because everyone should see this. Read it for themselves. And it just gives me the first page here is just research integrity, things of that nature. Published RAND Corporation, registered trademark. Executive summary. It's called Weakening Germany, Strengthening the USA. That doesn't sound terrifying at all, does it? I'm going to read it to you. Sorry, my reading might be a little messed up, my brain injury. We all know how it is. Okay. The present state of the U.S. economy does not suggest it can function without financial and material support from external sources. The quantitative easing policy, which is increasing interest rates, which the Fed has resorted to regularly in recent years, as well as the uncontrolled issue of cash during the 2020 and 2021 COVID lockdowns have led to a sharp increase in external debt and the increase of the dollar supply. Increase in dollar supply is inflation. Continuing deterioration of the economic situation is highly likely to lead in the loss of position of the Democratic Party in the Congress and the Senate in the forthcoming elections to be held November 2022. The impeachment of the president, referring to Biden, cannot be ruled out under these circumstances, which must be avoided at all costs. Is anybody now starting to figure this out? There's an urgent need for resources to flow to the national economy. When they mean resources, they mean money, especially in the banking system. Only European countries bound by EU and NATO commitments will be able to provide them without significant military and political cost for us. The major obstacle to its growing independence of Germany, the major obstacle to it is growing independence of Germany. Although it's still a country with limited sovereignty, let that sink in. Limited sovereignty. Sorry, I can't pronounce that word. For decades, it's been constantly moving towards lifting these limitations, becoming a fully independent state. This movement is slow and cautious, but steady. Extrapolation shows the ultimate goal can be reached only in several decades. However, if social and economic problems in the United States escalate, the pace could accelerate significantly. In addition, the factor contributing to Germany's economic independence is Brexit. With the withdrawal of the UK from the EU structures, we have lost meaningful opportunity to influence the negotiation of cross-governmental decisions. That means the USA has been sticking their fingers in other governments' businesses. Think you're free? You're not free. An additional factor contributing to Germany's economic independence, I already got there. It is fear of our negative response, which by and large determines the relatively slow speed of those changes. If one day we abandon Europe, there would be a good chance for Germany and France to get full political consensus. Then Italy and other old European countries, primarily formerly ECSC members, may join on certain conditions. Britain, which is currently outside the European Union, will not be able to resist the pressure of the Franco-German duo alone. If implemented, the scenario will eventually turn Europe not only into an economic but also a political competitor to the United States. And they can't have that. They do not want anybody trying to outmuscle the United States. Besides, if the U.S. is for a certain period engulfed by domestic problems, the old Europe will be able to more effectively resist the influence of the U.S.-oriented Eastern European countries. Don't worry, there's only 4 pages long. That was the first one. Vulnerabilities in German and EU economy. An increase in the flow of resources from Europe to the USA can be expected if Germany begins to experience controlled economic crisis. The pace of economic development in the EU depends almost without alternative on the state of the German economy. It is Germany that bears the brunt of the expenditure directed towards the poor EU members. Germany has been propping up a lot of EU governments. Greece, Italy, they're loaning money left and right. Germany is broke, much like the rest of the Western world. The current German economic model is based on two pillars. Those are unlimited access to cheap Russian energy resources and cheap French electric power. Thanks to the operation of nuclear power plants, the importance of the first factor is considerably higher. Halting Russian supplies can well create a systematic crisis that would be devastating for the German economy and indirectly the entire EU. The French energy sector could begin to experience heavy problems. The predictable stop in Russian-controlled nuclear fuel supplies, combined with the unsustainable situation in the Sahel region, I'm not sure what that is, would make French energy sector critically dependent on Australian and Canadian fuel. In connection with the establishment of AUKUS, AUKUS, it creates new opportunities to exercise pressure. However, this issue is beyond the scope of the present report. Controlled crisis. Due to coalition constraints, the German leadership is not in full control of the situation in the country. Thanks to our precise actions, referring to American actions, it is possible to block the commissioning of Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Fuck, didn't that just happen? Did that just happen? It just happened, didn't it? Despite the opposition of lobbyists from the steel and chemical industries, however, the dramatic deterioration of the living standards may encourage the leadership to reconsider the policy and return to the idea of European sovereignty. I can never pronounce that word. And strategic autonomy. It is the only feasible way to guarantee Germany's rejection of Russian energy supplies is to involve both sides in military conflict with Ukraine. Wait a second. Is that why this has begun? Just remember, this was wrote January 22nd. Our further actions in this country will never lead to military response from Russia. Russia will obviously not be able to leave unanswered the massive Ukrainian army pressure on the unrecognized Donbass republics. That would make it possible for Russia to declare, that would make possible to declare Russia an aggressor and apply the entire package of sanctions prepared beforehand. Remember, written January 2022. Putin may in turn decide to impose limit counter sanctions primarily on Russian energy supplies to Europe. Thus, the damage to the EU countries would be quite comparable to the ones the Russians, and in some countries, primarily Germany, will be higher. The prerequisite for Germany to fall into this trap, that's their words, not mine, is the leading role of the Green parties and ideologies in Europe, shutting down nuclear power, coal power, relying on Russian gas. Where was that here? The German Greens are a strongly dogmatic, if not zealous, movement, which may make it quite easier for them to ignore the economic arguments. In this respect, the German Greens somewhat exceed their counterparts in the rest of Europe. Personal features and the lack of professionalism of their leaders, I'm going to screw up this name, primarily Annalena Baerbock and Robert Habeck, permit to presume that the next to impossible for them to admit their own mistakes in a timely manner. Thus, it will be enough to quickly form the media image of Putin's aggressive war and turn the Greens into ardent and hardline supporters of sanctions, a party of war. It will enable the next page. Sanctions regime to introduce without any obstacles. The lack of professionalism of the current leaders will not allow setback in the future, even with the negative impact of the chosen policy becomes obvious enough, which means they know they're doing something wrong, but you know what? Their ideology, it comes first. The partners in the German governing coalition will simply have to follow their allies, at least until the load of economic problems outweighs the fear of provoking a government crisis. However, when the SPD and the FDP are ready to go against the Greens, the possibility of the next government to return relations with Russia normal soon enough will be noticeably limited. Germany's involvement in large supplies of weapons and military equipment to the Ukrainian army will inevitably generate a strong mistrust in Russia, which will make negotiations process quite lengthy. If war crimes and Russia aggression against Ukraine are confirmed, the German political leadership will not be able to overcome its EU partners' veto on assistance to Ukraine and reinforced sanction packages. This will ensure sufficient long gap in cooperation between Germany and Russia, which will make large German economic operations uncompetitive. Expected consequences. This will be interesting. A reduction of Russian Russian energy supplies, ideally a complete halt of such supplies, will lead to the disastrous outcome for German industry. The need to divert significant amounts of Russian gas for winter heating of residential and public facilities will further exacerbate the shortages. Lockdown in industrial enterprises will cause shortages of components and spare parts for manufacturing, a breakdown of logistic chains, an eventual domino effect, a complete standstill at the largest in the chemical, metallurgical, machine building plants is likely. They'll have virtually no spare capacity to reduce energy consumption. It will lead to the shutting down of continuous cycle enterprises, which would mean their destructions. That means gutting the German economy. The Americans, the head of NATO per se, want to destroy one of their own allies to stick it to the Russians. The cumulative loss of the German economy can be estimated only approximately. Even if the restriction of German supplies is limited to 2022, the consequences will last for 7 years, and the total loss could reach 200 to 300 billion euros. Not only will it deliver a devastating blow to the German economy, but the entire EU economy will inevitably collapse. This is being orchestrated by the United States government, written by one of their head contractors for intelligence. We are talking not about the declining economy growth pace, but a sustained recession and declining GDP, only material production of 3 to 4% per year for the next 5 to 6 years. Such fall will eventually cause panic in the financial markets and may bring them to collapse. They're trying to collapse the world markets. The euro will inevitably be most likely inadvertently fall below the dollar. A sharp fall of the euro will consequently cause a global sale. It will become a toxic currency, and all countries in the world will rapidly reduce their share of the Forex reserve. This gap will primarily be filled with the dollar and yuan. Another inevitable consequence of prolonged economic recession will be a sharp drop in the living standards and the rising unemployment up to 200 to 400,000 people in Germany alone, which will enable the exodus of skilled labor and well-educated young people. There are literally no other destinations for such migration other than the United States today. A somewhat smaller, but we're on the last page, last paragraph and a half. Quite significant flow of migrants can be expected from other EU countries. The scenario under consideration will thus serve to strengthen the national financial conditions, both indirectly and most directly in the short term, and will reverse the trend of the looming economic recession, and in addition, consolidate American society by distracting it from immediate economic concerns. In turn, this will reduce electoral risks. They're willing to destroy Europe to get Biden reelected. This is written by the Rand Corporation. I'm going to flip the camera around in a few minutes here so you can have a look at the front page of this, and just so you confirm, I didn't make this shit up. In the medium term, 4 to 5 years, the cumulative benefit of capital flight, reoriented logistical flows, and reduced competition in major industry may amount to US $7 to $9 trillion. Unfortunately, China is also expected to benefit in the medium term from the emerging scenario. At the same time, Europe's deep political dependence on US allows us to effectively neutralize possible attempts by individual European nations to draw closer to China. Wow. Is that not messed up? I'm going to go back to the first page here and show you what it looks like. Okay. I don't know how you can see this because I can't see my camera running, but that's the front page. Notice the DNC. Notice the date, January 25th, 2022, confidential. And research integrity, blah, blah, blah. Executive summary. Vulnerabilities, control of crisis, expected consequences. So who's the bad man now? Anybody want to tell me who the bad man is? Boomhauer, nice to see you, buddy. I got my camera now. I can see people again. Is that not messed up? Is it not messed up the United States is willing to destroy Europe, let Russia fight it out with most of Europe, destroy the Ukrainians? So Biden won't get impeached, and he'll probably get reelected. Anybody? Anyone? No? Okay. I'm going to end this video, give you guys the link. I'm going to post it in the detailed or description section. Give it a read yourself. I need a drink. It's 8:30. I probably can't count one. So, wow. Rand Corporation. Go ahead, Google them, everyone. You folks have a great night. Don't sweat the petty things and don't pet the sweaty things.